I have a few comments prior to my formal presentation, things that I thought of while I was listening to some of the other presenters. And one of them has to do with the names of country schools. All of them in the township I'm going to deal with had names, and sometimes they didn't make sense. Alden number 5 stood on top of a hill. It was named Swamp College. Now, another thing, it has to do with reunions. In Wright County, the school that I went to, in fact, it's the only Wright County in Iowa, as you all know, Iowa Township number 4 held a 25-year reunion in 1973 after the school had closed in 1948. A man attended that reunion who started to school in that schoolhouse the first fall it was operating in 1886. John Campbell was somewhere between 90 and 100 years old. So he came back to school. All you ladies in the audience owe my county superintendent a debt of gratitude. Well, maybe not all of you. How many of you ladies went to school, to high school, in an Iowa high school? Most of you. Well, my superintendent of schools, Claude W. Sankey, the one that gave me my 8th grade diploma, in 1926, on a cold winter night at Ida Grove High School, met with 3 other men, and together they formed the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union.
6-player basketball.
And so you girls who participated in athletics in high school or junior high school, you can give him some of the credit, because it was that organization that has given the state of Iowa probably the greatest girls athletic forum in the United States.
In the world.
Now, I have a tendency to wander in my comments. It's gotten worse. And so I'm going to read most of what I have to say. And I'm going to intersperse this with a series of slides, and then I'm going to come back to the podium. So I'm going to talk a little bit, then show a series of slides. The slide program that I have is about 125 slides. And you're not going to see it all. And what you're going to see at a very rapid rate. I'm not going to talk about the slides. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Well, who am I? Well, I'm an 8-year country school graduate, and there aren't very many of those left. Now, we have a 9-year country school graduate over there. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm also a 35-year old school physics and chemistry teacher and a women's basketball coach for 24 years. My wife and I also owned and operated a choose and cut Christmas tree plantation for 30 years. We finally got out from under that, but it was a great amount of fun. When I first planned this talk, I was going to show some of the program at the end of my presentation. Upon rethinking it, I decided to very quickly go through part of my slide program and then discuss the how of it. When contacted by Bill Sherman, I thought, what can I possibly contribute to a conference on country school preservation? Well, my answer is, this is a foot in the door. Make the presentation, get your audience thinking, and in a few cases, action will follow. You recognize, of course, that I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about my audiences back home. And I have quite a bit of audience. A week ago today, I gave this presentation 4 times. And we had a history day in Iowa Falls, and I presented the thing 4 times. So a lot of people got to see things. Now, I don't want you to think small here. If you think we're talking about bricks and mortar, not that preserving buildings is not important, you should expand your thinking. It's just as, if not more important, to ask what the social, the religious, the economic, and the political impact of country schools had on our history in the period from 1835 to after 1960. I'm going to stop here and show a portion of this program. It is broken into two parts. The first dealing with country schools in general, and the second half specifically with the 13 country schools in Alden Township, Hardin County. I wanted people to visualize the activities in a country school, and I wanted them to understand what happened to those 13 schools. So we will go through the first half. There are 12 slides on the nature of the buildings, 9 on getting to school, 15 on what happened during the academic day, 18 dealing with extracurricular activities, and 2 dealing with the closing of the schools. The second half is devoted to the 13 schools, the sites as they look today. Now I have to explain something here. I know all of you know that a standard congressional township is 6 by 6. And there should be how many schools in that 6 by 6? Anybody? 9. We had 13. Nobody seems to know what happened in Hardin County. The top tier of townships in Hardin County only has 3 townships. Etna, where Ackley is, Hardin, where Iowa Falls is, and Alden, where the town of Alden is. And those 2 west ones are 6 by 9 rather than 6 by 6. I have never found an answer to the question of why, but that's the way it is. We will see only school number 1 in the second half because it's all repetition, okay? I'll discuss number 1, and the other 12 are the same thing. Only, of course, they're all different. At the end are photos of 2 operating country schools on the High Plains. My wife and I made a special trip. We searched out country schools in Nebraska and South Dakota. We even found one in Kansas. Then there are 2 Amish schools in Buchanan County that I have slides of, but I know there are a lot more than that. Now, having been a longtime member of a service organization, like the Rotary or the Kiwanis or the Lions or whatever, I know that there is limited time for some programs. Oftentimes, only 30 minutes is allowed to give a program. So this works out real good. I can show the first half of the program, and if that's all the time we have, fine. And if we have time to go on through, we'll do that, to show the second half of what happened to the 13 schools. Now, this is one of the commercial books that's available on country schools, and I just use it as an introduction. And away we go. Remember, these first pictures are of the kind of materials that country schools are made of. This one is in the Tallgrass National Prairie in Kansas, stone. Brick, wood, Roll County, Indiana, Big Belfry, no bell. An 8-sided schoolhouse at Hutchinson, Minnesota. Now, the next series are of getting to school. Grundy County, 1937, from the air. Kids walk down those roads. Highway 6 east of Des Moines, 1940. This is an unusual Winneshiek County picture. There is a walking bridge for students. The schoolhouse was on one side of the Upper Iowa, and the farmstead was on the other. This is no longer used, but it's really an interesting picture. Now, how did we get to school? Pony, cart, ooh, school bus, even got a smokestack. Now, I'm not giving you the whole spiel here, you understand that. This is just real quick. But I found this in a barn in northwest Iowa. Yeah, a real school bus full of junk. A better picture. Now, some pictures about how school was done, what happened. Before the school started, if you could, you played outside. The flag is flying. We lined up outside. I don't have a picture of this. And we said the pledge in good weather. In bad weather, we came inside and hung up our coats. Then we stood beside our desks. And here are some general pictures of classrooms and activities. Now you see these differ from what you just saw in a previous presentation because that was a reenactment. This is not. We had 300 books in my library. I was lucky. Ciphering, recitation. I think this is posed. And these are almost all Hardin County pictures, incidentally. Not all of them. This is a bad situation here. If one kid got sick, we all got sick, right? Lunch. More lunch. More lunch. This was taken in a school east of Radcliffe, Iowa. If the weather was bad, indoors. After we'd finished eating out, we go. A pyramid. Look at all that stuff. If you look closely, you can find a bow and arrow in there. And I can imagine kids bringing bow and arrows to school now. Dollies. Picture. I know. Tag. I got this out of a 1946 Life magazine. Winter scene, fun, 1944. Sledding. You notice the thing in the background, the barrel? Everybody knows what it was for, right? Burning barrel. None of the children that I ever showed this to know this game. Nobody knows it. And the two little buildings out back, they understand what they are. And Halloween. And more Halloween. This is at Buckeye Township, number 1, northeast of Buckeye, southwest of Iowa Falls. It's Halloween, and there are 3 elephants in the picture. There they are. Which one is Dumbo? And there's 2 girls on the right. The youngest one, the boy, is on the left. That's the Inks kids. I don't know. Can't tell you what it is, or that one. Those are little lambs. And Mother's Day's coming up, okay? They made lambs. Yeah. But guess where they're going to go? They're going to Iowa Falls for dental parade. And so are these. This is Ellis number 2. And so are these. And you won't believe this. This is a cousin of my wife, the teacher, a 40-year elementary teacher, taking her kids to see a beaver dam. Can you imagine what the county superintendent of schools would have said had he known this? There would have been big trouble. Food for victory. The schools were used for more things than you might think. They were used for church also. And then, at the end of the show, the auction. A sad, sad story. J.C. Wright lost his job over this. At least I'm told that. State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Not over this picture, but over the whole thing of closing the country schools. Very unpopular, but very necessary, I think. Well, anyway, that's the first half. Then, and I'm going to show you just a couple pictures here. On the right middle is the town of Alden. And this is Alden Township. It's 6 by 9. It's the northwest township in Hardin County. Number 1 sat where the arrow is, northwest of town. There is where it sat. You can't even tell it, can you? That's what it looked like when it was sitting there. The trees all around it, and it was an operating school. Then it was moved into town, and that's it today. Can you see the schoolhouse in the very middle? You see the garage that's been added on the side. You see the living room that's put on the right side. You see the dormers that have been put up above. It's been quite altered, but you can still see it, can't you? So this is the way the rest of this show goes. I'll go into number 2 real quick. You see where number 2 is now? It's not even close to where it should be, is it? You start in the upper right-hand corner up there in number 1, in a mile both ways, and then you go over 2 miles, and so on. Well, they're all mixed up in Alden Township. There's where it's at. I know a lady who used to be a mail company. She used to carry mail, and she'd stop there in the summertime, and she'd get an apple off that tree. She said they were very good. The reason I know about this is because she was my wife. And that's what the school looked like. That's where it is now in Williams, Iowa at 711 Ann Street. And if I back up a little, you see they closed in the front porch. Okay? Otherwise, it's the same building. And all the rest of them go the same way. So now I'm going to move all the way to the end. Well, somewhere to the end. There. Here we are, 4 miles north of Valentine, Nebraska. An operating country school. It's 8:15 in the morning. They have it all. Central heating, a full basement, indoor plumbing. They're hooked up to the internet. They have everything that a town school would have, except they don't have any buses. The bus drivers are the mothers and dads that bring them to school. On the plains west of Pierre, South Dakota, how can you tell that school is in session? You should be able to tell. The flag is up, isn't it? Yes, look at it, just to the right of the schoolhouse. Central Nebraska. Buchanan County, Iowa. Who's in the school? Amish. And another one. And that's the end of the slideshow. Okay? So, because I started my teaching career in 1957, before overhead projectors, computers, computer projectors, PowerPoint presentations, and the internet, I used what was available to me in my classroom, and that wasn't much. Now let's get to what we need to do this kind of a slide presentation, which is the gist of what I was charged to do here today. When we received an NDEA grant, how many of you know what that is? Anybody know what an NDEA grant is? There's one guy, I know he'd know. NDEA was something out of the late 50s and 60s, the National Defense Education Act. It came about as a result of something the Russians did. They put up a satellite called Sputnik. It lasted 2 weeks. That's all right. They were ahead of us. When we received an NDA grant for furniture and equipment for the new science and math facilities at our school, I included a new 35mm single lens reflex camera, a Kodak 800 slide projector, a macro lens, and a copy table for our list of equipment. Later, I purchased the necessary materials to develop pictures at the same in our laboratory. Now here on this table are the materials you need, and I'm going to show them to you in a few minutes. Perhaps you might need an explanation of a macro lens and a single lens reflex camera. Are these things still available? Yes, and you can buy them for almost nothing compared to their original cost. Go to eBay and make your choices. I bought 2 perfectly good Kodak slide projectors for $1 each. That's that thing back there at a Goodwill store. The 35mm business is almost dead thanks to the digital camera, okay? So these things are a drug on the market and a dime a dozen. Why do you need this equipment? Because every photo resource that you will have will be a standard photograph, and you must, if you are to make presentations to groups, get that photo into a format for large group presentation. A large group, and here's the presentation. And you can't show a picture and do justice to this. Have you heard that Kodak no longer sells slide film? You heard right. Well, that stops us right there, doesn't it? This thing is dead right now in the water. Not true. You can't buy this. Well, you can. It'll be dated. But you can buy this. Okay? Fuji makes several different speeds of 35mm slide film. And Kodak will, I should say that, Walmart will develop it for you. So you're in business if you want to do this. So now you need basic subject matter. I started in the public library and found a 1901 map showing the locations of the county schools in Hardin County. I was assigned Alden Township by a lady by the name of Beverly Riken from Ackley, the Hardin County coordinator for the country school survey done by the ISDA, and I think this gentleman right here was basically in charge of that. And I think it was done in the late 90s or early 2000s.
97.
97. Because Alden Township is 6 by 9, it had 13 schools, and I thought as long as I'm doing this, why not do it right and create a slideshow that anyone interested can enjoy. With a copy of the map and a little intuition, I traveled every site of the 13 schools. You saw the site of number 1. There's nothing there. A farm field. Only one school was at its original location, number 4 on Old Highway 20 west of Alden. I photographed the sites using driveways, corner posts, and backgrounds to get the exact locations. I then chased down the actual locations of 9 of the buildings. That's right, 9 of those 13 buildings are still standing. I photographed them. 5 of the 9 are private homes in Williams, Alden, and Iowa Falls. 2 are farmhouses, 2 are used for grain storage. The other 4 were either burned or torn down. Then I went after photos of the schools taken as they were while they were being used. I made 100 phone calls, at least, maybe more, the farthest to El Paso, Texas. And I obtained usable photos of all 13 schools. I also asked for photos of school events and photos of student groups, and I was very fortunate there also, as you have just seen. I converted the photos to slides. They were all black and white photos using a 35mm single lens reflex camera, the macro lens, the copy table, and then made up a sequence about one-room schools. Then I wrote a script to go with the slides. And here's my script. I don't always use it, but I usually do, because if I don't, I'll forget something. Well, slides weren't the end of one of my other programs, and it might not be the end of this one. However, after seeing some of this wonderful work that's been done, I probably won't pursue this. But in 1975, in order for our town to get a bicentennial flag, I enlisted the help of another gentleman, and I made a slide set of the visual history of Alden. 460 some slides. It takes 6 hours to show the program.
Better than reading a book.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't found anybody that wants to watch it all. Anyway, we did it, and 2 years ago, it was converted into a professional DVD, 52 minutes in length. And we ordered a whole bunch of DVDs. We sold them for $25 each. We sold every last one of them. We ordered another 100, and we sold every one of those, and we're on the 3rd. And we have paid for the video. The video cost us $100 a minute. $5,200. But it was marvelous to watch. Okay, and 52 minutes is much better than 6 hours. Now, it's nice to have a few props to go with your presentation. So here are 2 that I use. I've got a lot more of them, but these are just 2 of them. One is a copy of Grant Wood's painting, which everybody has seen already in half a dozen different presentations. But mine is a little different. You're probably saying, well, it doesn't look any different to me. Well, let me tell you. I have it thanks to the Art Institute of Chicago and an unnamed patron of the Institute. There's a great story that goes with this painting and its creation, not this one, the original. It has to do with an elementary principal in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and Grant Wood, and a cold Saturday morning in the winter of 1931, and a bottle of whiskey. I don't have time to tell you the story.
No part of it.
The other thing that I take along, among other things, is this. This is the actual signboard from Alden Township, District Number 11, and a farmer who bought the schoolhouse, put it in his barn, and stored it for 40 years. And one morning it arrived on my doorstep, and I was so happy to have it. I also have collections of, as many people do, of things like dinner buckets, pencil boxes, that kind of thing. I even have a half interest in a country school bell. So, that's about it. Oh yes, I do tell one more story. You recognize this? It's a pretty poor reproduction, but it's the best I could do. And of course, the children who know about the Iowa Quarter have no knowledge of where it came from. Okay? Maybe some of you didn't. I don't know. But the reverse side of the Iowa Quarter came from this. Thanks, I think, to our Governor Vilsack, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. Now just one more thing, and I'm done, and I know I've taken too much time. You need a single lens reflex camera. You can buy one for $25, $30, $35 or less. What is it? It's the kind of camera that when you look in the back, you're actually looking out through the lens. Okay? There's a mirror in there. And so you actually see what you're going to take the photograph of. That is something you have to have if you're going to copy small pictures. Then you have to have one that you can remove the lens from. Okay? That's a requirement. $25 maybe less. Then you need something called a macro lens. This is a macro lens. It fits right on the camera. Yeah, let me get it turned to you right. There. Now I have a macro lens on my camera, and I can photograph things as small as postage stamps and make them real big on that screen. So the two things that you have to have is the 35mm camera, well I guess there's three, the macro lens, and the film. And you're in business. And today you could do it for almost nothing. I mean, a $300 camera for less than 30 bucks. The macro lens might cost you a little bit because they're pretty fancy pieces. There are other ways to get by without using a macro lens too. And I've got a couple of other things. Extension tubes and a bellows attachment. And then I can use my regular lens. So that's the story, and I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I started in the video business back about 15 years ago when I decided to do a video on the history of my family. And we were fortunate to be one of those families who had hundreds of pictures. I had a great aunt who I think even slept with her camera because I never saw her face. There was always a camera in front of her. And so we had a lot of family pictures, and I did some research and did got some information about all of my great grandfather's children, which were my grandfather and his 11 brothers and sisters, and I put together a video, and back then I did it with a video camera and putting a picture in front of it and clicking it for so long, and then I did a narration over it, and it was well received by the family, and so I thought that was a lot of fun, and so I decided to do another, and I did that on the history of my hometown, which is in Hardin County, Steamboat Rock. And I did a video on that, and after that I started having some people saying, well, why don't you do this, why don't you do that, why don't you do another, and I did a few things for other people, and finally my daughter insisted that you got to do this on the computer, Dad, so I got my computer and started doing it that way. My next project of my own is one that's still in process. I am doing several, as a matter of fact, videos on ghost towns in the state of Iowa. There's over 3,000 ghost towns, so I won't run out of material. But anyway, I was working on this, and Jeanette Kotke from the Fredericksburg area asked me, she came to me one day and she said, we are trying to make a video on the country school that we have preserved. And she says, we really need your help. We videotaped all these teachers who taught there and a bunch of the students, but she said, it's just boring just sitting there watching these people talking all the time. And so I suggested, why don't you collect pictures? And she says, well, we don't have a lot of pictures. We've got some of the building, we've got a few of different classes, but will that be enough? And I said, no, you need to go out and start collecting pictures of items too, like lunch pails and little blackboards and all those kind of things that they used in the country school. And we can insert those while the people are talking. And so while they're telling their story, people can see a visual of the story and they won't get bored just seeing these people that are on the screen. So I helped them edit this and put it together, and we went back and forth a number of times collecting pictures. And at that time I had already started collecting old pictures, because that's something that I've really been interested in. And so I started archiving them in categories like old farm scenes and old school scenes and old mills and old whatever. And so I have quite a collection. And so since then I've been able to offer these to other people to use them in order to produce a video or whatever, just have pictures for their displays or whatever, and I've done quite a bit of that. And so what I'm telling you today is that if you're wanting to put together a video, and I'm certainly not as able as our folks here that are filming today, but I do have a little bit of knowledge that I have gained through experience more than anything else. And I do have a huge collection of pictures that I'm willing to share for you to use. And if you have any questions, you can contact me. I'll tell you some of the ins and outs. Like, for example, they wanted a musical background. I said, well, you just can't take any song you like and put it on the video. You have to get something that has no royalty or that has, is open for you to use. And so I helped them do that. And so these are the kind of things that I can offer you. And I will show you now some, these are some photos that I have archived of most of these schools. In fact, all of these schools are within Iowa. And I do have names that go with most of them. If you're going to do a program for video, you're probably going to have plenty of archival photos of your own school. You won't want to use pictures of other schools. but I do have them available, and you probably won't need mine, but like I say, I just want to show you some of the ones I have. Some are in relatively, now I did do a video about this particular school. This is called the Hickory Ridge School. It was in a ghost town called Hinkletown. And tonight when we show a little bit of the Fredericksburg video, I'll show you a reenactment of a May Day that we filmed for that particular story. At any rate, there's all sorts of these available on the internet. You can go on the internet and find a lot of these same pictures. The thing of it is, you've got to be very careful if you're going to use them that they're not copyrighted, because a lot of the people that put them up there do copyright them, so you need to make sure that you get the rights to them. Everything that I have in my collection, I have the rights to use, and so if you get them from me, you'll be able to do that without any trouble. This was a Hardin County school called Mineral Point, and so anyway, there are a number of these available to you if you need them, but again, you probably have those. What I'm going to try to show you is some of the things you might need. If you're going to make a video, you need to also have some things to set the mood. This particular one has my grandfather in it, which is I'm very proud of. You need to have some pictures to set the mood. Like, for example, maybe you'll need, if you're talking about what the kids did in the winter, you'll need some winter. But this is a school bus from Steamboat Rock, Iowa. My aunt drove it. Anyway, now we'll show some period photos, like, for example, farming scenes. Most of the kids lived on farms. Practically all of them did. And you might need some pictures to talk about what it was like farming while some of the boys didn't go to school in the summer months when they had 2 separate seasons, and they had to help on the farm. And I have all kinds of photos that you might want to use to fill in while you're talking about those things and how the boys had to help on the farm. So anything like this I have available for you to use, and again, I have the rights to all of these photos and can give you the right to use them without any problems that you would have with copywriting. When the ladies did the Fredericksburg video, they wanted to copyright it, and of course when you go for copyright, they're going to ask you if you have the rights to everything that you've used in the video, and you have to sometimes prove that. So that's something you want to be able to do. Now the audio isn't very loud here, but I again have a whole bunch of music that you could choose from that is copyright free, and you can use it and have no problems. Here again are color photos that I have showing the different seasons. If you wanted to put something as a transition between one of your stories where you went from the different seasons, I have a number of different photos, literally thousands for you to choose from, that you would be able to use for your transitions from the different seasons. With computers nowadays, you can do all sorts of different kind of fancy titles that you might want to do, but if you want someone to do the titles for you, I and a number of other people that I know can help you with making titles for your videos so they look a little bit different than the stuff that the computer automatically cranks out. Some of these are like the old-time slides that they used at the old movies back in before the talkies, they would say, where they had the intermission slides, and they would these are the kind of things that we can produce for you. Another thing, we've been talking about reenactments here today. I have worked with a whole slew of reenactment groups throughout the state of Iowa in videos that I have produced, and so I have a bunch of pictures like this. If you want to talk about a general store, maybe the kids all met at the general store before they went to the school. This is one where this storekeeper's catching a boy stealing something, and then of course then they didn't call the law, he just caught him and he turned him over to his mother. So if you don't actually have pictures of these people, you may want to use somebody else when you're talking about that person, and you can tell the folks in your video that these are reenactors and not the real persons, of course, but they help tell the story again without being bored with a bunch of talking heads. I have a number of reenactments from Civil War. If you're talking about a period in history, and I have other periods, different things, the Depression, different things I have pictures of that you might want to use. If you say, during the Civil War, our school, and as you transfer through, you can show some Civil War pictures. This particular man was a school teacher in Hardin County. His name was James Boyd. Here's the reenactor that played his part. As you can see, they're almost a spitting image of each other. This man started a school in the ghost town of Berlin back in 1856. And the school became so popular that it became a teacher's academy. And there were actually people coming from the East Coast to learn how to teach school in Berlin, Iowa, back in the 1850s. Well, when the Civil War broke out, the governor, Kirkwood, asked Mr. Boyd if he would help organize the 37th Infantry Division. And he did. And he and all of his older students that had come from the East Coast, they all went to fight in the Civil War. And when they came back, most of them had lost their lives and were gone. The town of Berlin became a ghost town because it died. There were not enough men left. And so that was a town in Iowa that was actually wiped out by the Civil War. That's part of the video that I'm producing, and these are some scenes from it of Mr. Boyd. He later went on to become the superintendent of schools in Hardin County. He did survive the war. This is the scenes that I will show you, actual scenes of. This was a May Day video that we shot with reenactors about the Hinkletown School, Hickory Ridge. There was a gentleman there that actually came and told the story of how they went out on May Day every year and collected flowers and things, and we reenacted the whole thing, and I'll show you just a short clip of that this evening. But these are some pictures from that. Again, this is the Hickory Ridge School, Hinkletown, Iowa. The building's gone, but there's so many memories that they've really collected a lot. If you go to hinkletown.com, you'll see a lot more pictures. They have their own website.